Hello everyone, my name is The Real Death Machine, and today I have quite the video for you guys. Now, recently we have seen the release of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, one of the most hyped Five Nights at Freddy's games in the entire series, and its release has made a huge impact upon the community, both negatively and positively. In this video I'll be going into those things and kind of explaining. This will serve more as an overview rather than like an actual review. So let's hop right into it. So starting out, we should add some context to this, like how did we get here? So this game, ever since, going way back, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted was released to a lot of success. I saw not much criticism, maybe a little bit about how it was lore loose, kind of rebooted the series in a way some people didn't like, and I was among the few who kind of was like, I'm unsure about this, but I came around to it. It's not that bad. It's a pretty good game. And after that, that success of seeing, a 3D Five Nights at Freddy's VR, and also in a flat mode, people were wondering what was next for the series. And we soon got our answer in the form of a couple teasers. We saw these interesting teasers set in this neon lit mall. It was insane, and there was no explanation behind it. At first we thought this was for a project Scott had brought up in passing called Five Nights at Freddy's Into Madness, but we were soon updated on the situation and learned this was actually part of a game called Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Now at the time we had no idea what the hell that was, but over the coming months, we would soon figure out that this is a new and very big Five Nights at Freddy's game. It was something unlike the community had ever seen before. And boy, were they right. So, skipping ahead of time, we got calendars, we got posters, we got merchandise, we got crappy Funko figures, we got awesome Funko statues. We got the whole shebang for this game. We got, trailers that were amazing. They also warranted some hilarious reactions from fellow YouTuber Daco. Those were priceless. But that aside, the day finally came. Alright. Hours before the launch, the game got delayed, but kind of not really. But once that was out of the way, it was time. The final countdown for this highly anticipated Five Nights at Freddy's game. And eventually, as the timer wound down, and as YouTubers got early access, and everyone, including me, made a mad dash to hide from spoilers until we actually got our hands on the copy, it began. People booted up that game, everyone played it, everyone saw the opening cutscene, these beautiful cinematics, hopped right into the game, and oof. Yeah, it's rough. Okay, so maybe I should start with the most glaring problem people saw off the bat. The first part of the game is great, but it kind of starts abruptly, if you get what I mean. We go from this sweeping cinematic that shows off these beautiful new characters with this awesome, vibrant 80s style, keyboard, guitar music, introducing us to all the new characters. And then Freddy sees something in the crowd towards the end of the performance, right when he's about to sing, it looks like, falls over, and boom, it cuts to black, and then you see this boot up screen showing that he's restarting, he is booted into safe mode, he's presumably off the stage. And then it just kind of boots up from his perspective, staring at himself in the mirror, talking, mentioning about how he shouldn't be turning on yet, that there must be something going on with him. And he hears this voice from inside of him, a kid. So a kid named Gregory has crawled inside of him. It's never explained how or when, just that Freddy's stomach was open at one point, so Gregory just came out of nowhere, crawled in his stomach for no reason really. And we get this kind of cool sequence where they interact with each other. Freddy gives him a scan in an attempt to identify him and to help him out. And we kind of learn that Gregory is hiding from this night guard who works there, named Vanessa, who is watching the facility. We don't get why he does though. he kind of just says that she's after him. He doesn't specify. He just feels like she is. So, I mean, I guess that happened. And that's kind of where it starts. And it's not bad for a start, but it's abrupt. Like, if that didn't sound a little confusing to you, then you would not be alone. Most people were kind of scratching their heads, but most of us just rolled with it because, you know, it's the beginning of the game. It's only going to get better from here. It does. To kind of, like, keep this half spoilery, because I wish to mainly spoil certain aspects to keep some, because there's certain things in this game you just need to experience for it to, you know, to be fun or to be interesting. It's not the same when you hear me talk about it or listen to it, but the story was kind of the least of this game's problems. There were some pretty bad bugs we encountered. So upon playing this game, as people progressed, people started to see that the game itself was either too powerful for their devices or was just chugging. Like, holy crap, I've seen some YouTubers I watch who have these great PCs, these PS5s. I see the frames dropping every 3 seconds, causing them to lag into walls, lag into enemies, causing early deaths. I'm seeing clipping all over the place, and I don't mean like minor clipping, like Scott Koff on hand and endoskeleton clipping. I mean like half of the body is in the goddamn wall. I'm seeing these horrifying robots contort into these A poses and T poses and float menacingly towards me, and it's like, what the hell happened here? So, something I should have mentioned in the preamble to all this is that the game had many delays, like many delays, and a lot of these delays were for the reason of the game is getting bigger. Don't worry guys, we're just patching up bugs, we're making this game bigger, we're just putting it in the oven, it needs more time to cook, we're gonna iron out all these things, all these problems. And if they ironed out as many problems as they said they did, then I'm horrified to know what they ironed out, because what came out in this game are some of the most hilarious, but also some of the most horrifyingly bad bugs I have ever seen. From, you know, Freddy Fazbear turning into Freddy Fazbear and clipping through the Phaser Blast area, and condemning my cheating actions, to multiplying Monty, all gathering in the party pickup area, to A-posing Chica floating menacingly towards me. You know, it wasn't fun. Things were really bad. Now, as of writing this video, Steelwool has announced a bug fix that they will be patching this game, and I'm glad. Although, I may be forgiving about these things, because a lot of it is, you know, you should expect with AAA games nowadays. It's just the state of the industry at this point. The bugs certainly kind of are what made and broke this game. Many content creators I know outright quit the game, and I do not blame them. I mean, certain bugs in this game soft locked you, and there were certain areas in this game where there wasn't enough save points, or there were points where the save points shut down once you get to a certain point in the game, that if you had done this entire run and then you were soft locked before you can get to a save point, your progress is rendered null, and that caused people to have to restart, which obviously fucking sucks. No one wants to do that. So, you have many YouTubers and streamers who chug on for the sake of content or because they love this game, and whatever way you're doing it for, rightfully so, good on you. But then we had many people who suffered really bad things. Phil Morg, Five Nights at Freddy's Plus creator, he suffered some problems with his computer, and rightfully kind of pissed him the hell off. And because of this whole thing, he looks like he's considering leaving the community outright, which is a bit of an overreaction in my opinion, but, you know, at the same time, his computer kind of almost spontaneously combusted from playing the Scary Bear game, so I don't exactly, you know, I think some of his anger is justified. But while the bugs in this game were horrible, there was two other things that sort of happened along with the graphical problems and the bugs. The gameplay itself was interesting. I find the gameplay fun. I think it's interesting. I like the hide and seek element. I like the idea of free roam, kind of. It's a fetch questy game, but not really in a bad way. It's kind of like you have to, you're in one huge area, and you're going to be in this area the entire game. You will branch off the beaten path and enter some areas that you probably won't enter again unless you want to go look for secrets. But for the most part, it's kind of a game where you will go do things, and you will come back later, and you will come and you'll see these locked gates, and it's like, oh darn, can't go there. So you progress the game, but later you get the key or you get the ability to get through that gate. It's stuff like that. So if you're a fan of that, this game will probably be for you. This game also has situations where you'll be moving around and you got all these robots and you got all these animatronics who are moving around in these areas looking for you. And if they spot you, you have to, use your limited stamina meter to run or to hide. And I like that. I think that's cool. Another cool little plus this game has is you actually have a partner in all this. You actually get to work with Freddy in this game, and you can call him at any time, and you can hide inside his chest. And by doing so, not only do you get to control him, which is actually a really cool mechanic, you also are safe from the animatronics because they will not attack Freddy. Freddy's supposed to be working with them, and they don't really recognize that he's kind of the enemy to them at this point. He's working for the enemy. So he's your he's kind of like your safe house. You go inside of him, you're safe for a limited amount of time. The only catch here is that he actually runs out of battery, and he runs out of it really goddamn quick. And so you kind of have to strategize and sparingly use him to get out of tight situations. You also have to use him to traverse certain areas or to use certain abilities, which is a really interesting way of making sure you conserve and you constantly charge him. Another interesting aspect of this game is you also have a camera on your watch. Gregory has this watch, and it's kind of connected. Earlier on in the game, you get it connected to the entire Pizzaplex's camera system. So whenever you're in an area, like once you go inside a certain area, the atrium or, the entrance hall, you will get this mini-map, and you can go on there anytime, select any cameras, and you can watch. So you can be hiding, and you can watch your six by using the cameras. The cameras never run out of power, except for, I think, in certain sequences, which are scripted sequences. But for the most part, you can look at it anytime. And this is a really cool thing. And you can also use all kinds of certain things to help you out. You got distraction objects you can use to distract animatronics that are close so you can get moving. And it's a very cool idea. The game also is, another way it's different from the other games is it actually includes boss fights. If you really even want to call it that, because if I'm being brutally honest with you, there is technically one boss fight in this entire game. There are two other quote-unquote boss fights, but technically what they are extended sequences. I mean, one of them is a puzzle sequence, and the other is technically a cutscene plays, and then you go into a confined area while something leaps at you, and you kind of just dodge it. Keep in mind, you don't even really kill it, you just dodge it. So, yeah, take that as you will. It's interesting. I mean, for me, it kind of worked. I kind of liked having some cutscenes where you get to have these cinematic showdowns with these creatures. The only problem is two of them are very short-lived and kind of suck, and one of them comes off as very comedic, if I'm being completely honest with you. But, it's definitely a step in the right direction, in my opinion. I actually like this. This is a cool idea. So for the gameplay, as you can see, it's very simple. A lot of people kind of criticized it, saying it is very run-of-the-mill, it's very stock standard, so I wouldn't really blame them for that one. It is kind of stock standard. So if you're fine with that gameplay like I am, go ahead and pick this up. I think you'll like it if you can, but I recommend waiting till after the patch comes out to pick this up. because you will be paying a pretty whopping price for this game. I think it's like $40, but some people are saying the game changed to $14 now. So I have no idea, but either way, just wait till the patch comes out, because you do not want to play this game with the amount of glitches it has. So the last thing I'm really going to cover here is probably, besides the bugs, what is the most dividing thing about this game: the story treatment. Now, before this, I kind of was like half spoilery. I didn't really go into much. Here is going to be some complete spoilers, so if you do not want that, I would click off this video now. You can go anytime. Are all you gone? Alright, cool. Let's continue this thing. So, the story. Oh god. Where do I start with this? The story, as I said, it kind of started. I already went over the story at the beginning, towards the beginning of this video. You know, Freddy passes out on stage for an unknown reason. Your character Gregory wakes up inside of him, or so it seems. That's not really explained. Gregory crawls into him. Freddy wakes up with him there, and it's just like, you know, it's all over the place. So you kind of, basically what you do is you let Freddy out of his holding. He's got this green room, which is kind of cool. All the animatronics have these after-stage rooms. And you have to let him out by going through a vent and looping around and getting a pass to let him out. And it's actually cool because you can go through the vent and you can see all these animatronics have personalities, and they all have these things they're doing behind the scenes. And it's kind of cool to see this human element. It makes them certainly less scary, but it's just kind of cool. The series hasn't really done something like this. Sister Location kind of touched on giving animatronics this personality and this behavior, but in that way it was more of just an element to increase the fear factor. This is just kind of a really interesting story element because, as I'll explain in a couple minutes here, it does play a role in the story of how human these animatronics are. So after you move through that area, you go through Rockstar Row, I believe. I think it's either Rockstar or Glam Rock Row or something like that. But you go through that area, and it's got all the green rooms, it's neon lit, it's even got these like little storage casing things, like museum displays, that's got these really cool, like, it's got these old relics of the past. You see like the burnt torso of Foxy, you see the cupcake, you see the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 toys, you see all kinds of cool things. You see old posters from past games, and it's a really interesting thing. So you go through there, you have to go behind the scenes, you have to go down the stairs to this backstage area. It's just this really dark backstage area. And once you go down, you know, you have encounters with the animatronics, you have to run away. You enter this little office portion, which is just like a way to introduce you to a gameplay aspect that appears later on in the game, which in my opinion was kind of a meh for me, but it's interesting. It's certainly a cool little way to make a callback to the original games. But after that, you're eventually kind of like cut loose. After you get out of that whole beginning section of going out, letting Freddy out, going through the backstage area, and, you know, running away from some of these animatronics as they get released on you, you basically are let out into the mall. You can do whatever you want. Not really, there's still like a story progression, but now you can kind of branch out and look for secrets, look for collectible items, kind of look around. And from here, this is kind of where the story takes a nosedive for me. Now, a lot of you are going to be saying, if you have played the game, oh, but the story isn't really that bad. I mean, it only gets kind of bad after the midsection. And to that, I say yeah and no, because right off the bat, this game has a lot of trappings that are kind of bad. It makes a mistake very early on. So the first encounter area you really get into is the Daycare. It is one of the most effective areas I've seen in Five Nights at Freddy's. It's got one of the coolest animatronic designs and, you know, concepts. It's also voiced by Kellen Goff, so, you know, how's this not a win? My big issue, though, with it and how the game fails is we spend not very long in it. It's one section that you never really come back to. Sure, you will come back to the daycare later on, but because of your past actions in the daycare, which are actually kind of hilarious, if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. You're not actually allowed back in the daycare area. You're more allowed to be back around it, and because of that, you don't really see that character ever again. And it's just kind of like, he's kind of like an encounter character. He's one who's just meant to be there to set the scene, just be one of the many, to add some layers to this mall that you're at, this pizzaplex. And it is a shame. And I think that, for me, is kind of what sucks. It kind of encapsulates how I feel about this game, because a lot of this game doesn't feel like lasting encounters, lasting danger. It kind of feels like a fart in the wind. It feels like you encounter these things and they're there and then they're not, and then it's just kind of like, oh, cool, I guess. You don't really see them again, or if you do, they're no longer really that relevant to the story. And that is a theme that is very present throughout this game, as there are a lot of moments where things are introduced or things are proposed as these really interesting ideas or characters, and then they're just never touched on again. Case in point would be one of the reasons people were so hyped for this game. So this game, one of the biggest appeals it had was a new villain, a person named Vanny. Now Vanny is this white rabbit. I'll flash her on the screen here for a second if you don't know who she is. And she is supposed to be an acolyte of the former villain, William Afton. Now this is an interesting concept. Even though I think it's convoluted as hell, it's an interesting concept. And I really think this character had some, I would think would have some kind of potential to them. But they kind of fell short. Now, according to what people have told me, there was a bug in the game where Vanny's supposed to appear more in the game because of this meter. The longer you stay in areas, a Vanny meter builds up, and once that fills, she's supposed to start hunting you down. Unfortunately, for a majority of this game's launch, that has been bugged, so it has resulted in Vanny appearing for 2 minutes total in the entire game. She barely appears in the actual gameplay and only appears in cutscenes, and so because of that, there is no weight to her character. And I know this isn't really much of a story problem now if we think about it, but this video is more being written from the perspective of when this game launched, the problems this game has at launch. Of course, a lot of this will be fixed, but I have to say that the issue of her being barely present as the main antagonist is aggravating, because she is not built up in the story. She appears, okay, and then she kind of just dies. Spoiler alert for most of the endings, she either gets away and is presumably never mentioned again, or she gets unceremoniously killed. And it is disappointing, very disappointing. And there was a little bit of a plot twist thrown in to try and make her more of a layered character, which it was completely fell flat because the twist was so predictable. People knew. If you've been in the community during this hype, these months of hype, you'll know that there's been a prominent theory that the night guard Vanessa that Gregory is mysteriously afraid of. There's been so many theories saying that she and Vanny are one and the same, and from the way the game depicts it, it kind of looks like they are. There is an ambiguous after credit title sequence that kind of implies something else going on, that there might be a clone of Vanny or like a ghost or something. Like, it's really hard to explain. It's pretty batshit insane, but for the most part, Vanny as a character was very wasted and not very well executed. Because even if we were to go with the assumption that Vanny was in the game, like she was walking around, she was doing as she was intended, even then, all she really does is show up. Story-wise, is it's kind of just implied that she's just hanging out around the Pizzaplex. There are some cool sequences where we find a couple of her hideouts, but for the most part, it's kind of just, she kind of just shows up on screens and just glitches and talks in this garbled voice and just acts very stereotypically creepy, and it's just a little lame. But for the most part, a lot of what happens in this game is very contained. It doesn't look like it was made to be an adventure that expands, because all the other games before this, they had a story that could be applied to multiple other stories of the other games. This one is mainly just, no matter really what ending you get, except for maybe the secret ending, which I'm going to touch on in a second here, which is probably the most aggravating aspect of this whole thing. This is a very contained story. It's pretty linear. It happens, and that's it. You know, the story of the Pizzaplex is done. Now, it looks like the story of the Pizzaplex will be expanded in the new novel series that's coming out, which, take that as you will. I mean, it looks pretty weird. I don't know what's going to be happening, but, you know, no matter how much I badmouth it, I'm still gonna be a sucker. I'm still gonna read it. That's kind of what I have become now at this point as a fan. So, you know, now that I've explained that, let's get to the biggest problem. The secret ending. The secret ending had potential. Let me explain here. The secret ending is very complicated. The way to get there is basically not worth it. The struggle is unfair to get there. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. The struggle to get to the secret ending is completely unfair, and it may feel like it's worth it, but I'm not gonna lie, I've only seen a couple people who have convinced themselves that this ending makes sense and it's really cool, because let's be fair, I don't think any person in their right mind, even some of the most lenient FNAF fans, streamers, and promoters, even they would say that this ending is kind of what. So, long story short, you take a secret elevator down underground. You follow these. You see this. As you're going through these old caves, is what it looks like. You turn to the side. You see this old Freddy Fazbear bronze statue laying in the dirt. It's a cool visual and a cool reveal. And as you turn the corner, you come to basically the buried Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator location with its flashing neon sign and everything. And it is cool. You go inside and you see the stages, the full deluxe stage and the little mini stage. It is really cool. We actually get to see what the place looks like. It's all burnt up looking. You can see the metal doors that Henry sealed everybody in with. And then there's this gaping hole in the ground. Following this hole, you get some dialogue about from Freddy, how he says, he and his friends have basically, they don't remember how or why, but they dug out that entire area a long time ago, and Vanessa seemingly made them do it. And Freddy also alludes to the fact that he is not himself, which, take that as you will. Oh boy, theories incoming. But as you're going down, you see this huge mass of wires, and it sounds like it's snoring, which is kind of silly and funny, but it's also kind of creepy because the snoring sounds like hissing noises. And it's a giant molten Freddy. No, I am not kidding, it is a giant molten Freddy. It has got, and if you look at it, you can see its face is now a Funtime Freddy mask, which, don't know how that happened, but you can see the mask of Baby, Funtime Foxy. Some people have said you can see Ballora and some endoskeletons at the lower section. You can see Chica, the original one, hanging out. You can see Bonnie, the original one, hanging out. You can see all kinds of crazy crap, a lot of implications. If you go down, a cutscene triggers where you break and fall through the floor into this corridor area, like this security office looking area, and some wires hold you down for a second as you do it, which is probably from Molten Freddy, and it makes this giant sweeping shot, this huge shot, and before you is this capsule, and it just opens with the smoke and everything, I kid you not, and out comes William Afton. Holy crap. Not like we saw this one coming. Well, technically, we saw this one coming, but not in the way it was presented. So, with that bombshell dropped on you, you're kind of forced into this boss fight, I guess, where all the broken Glamrock animatronics will come and attack you. Monty, being only half a body, crawls through the vents. Chica walks through the halls. Roxanne runs, and you have to hide if she comes. It's pretty simple. Towards the end, towards the end, Molten Freddy will snake his wire tentacles up through all these holes, and it will kind of be like a repeat of Nightmarion from Help Wanted, except you can't really repel them. You can only dodge them, because if you touch them, you get instantly jump scared. The whole point of this fight is you basically have multiple monitors, and Springtrap will walk in to different areas, and if you see him on the area, you have to click a button, and it's like, I don't know how, but clicking the button activates fire in that room for like a brief second, and it burns him, and so he starts walking around, and while he's walking around, you have to defend, and then you have to basically repeat burning him. Eventually, it triggers this scene. I'm going to be showing it up right now, and it is aggravating. This huge villain who was built up, this huge concept was built up. He shows up, and there he is, he's gone. What the hell happened? You know? And this is not elaborated on, might I mention. There's no post-credit scene that elaborates on this. The post-credit scene is sweet, to say the best, you know, but it doesn't make sense. It's an absolute horrendous ending. And I know what I just said right now sounds confusing, like my words sound confusing, because I myself, as I'm writing this, I'm still boggled and confused by this ending. What happened here? You're telling me that Springtrap was below this location. He somehow survived that fire. Him and Molten Freddy somehow survived. So there we go. Henry's sacrifice was rendered null. Basically, he died for nothing. His sacrifice did nothing. So there goes that. And now Springtrap is alive. So is Molten Freddy. And now he isn't. Like, he waddles around in this boss fight, if you want to call it that, and then just gets choked out and pulled up to the ceiling. I don't even know. I don't know how Steel Wool could have gotten this so wrong. It's a shocking ending. Like, it is an amazing. If the point of this ending was to have fan service and to call back to a pretty good game, a very good ending for the series, and to shock the viewers, then holy crap, they did it. Because this was a shocking ending, but it was a very poorly executed ending. So, in conclusion, this game, if you can't tell, a lot of my aggression has to do with the story and how it was handled. I'm going to be making more videos to deep dive into the story. This is just an overview of kind of what happened. And, you know, also as I'm writing this too, the community is now very divided because of this. Half of the people love this game. They're new fans. This is wholesome, this is awesome, because let's be honest, Freddy can call me his superstar anytime. It is freaking wholesome. But then on the other hand, we have people who hate this. They're saying they hate Steel Wool. Steel Wool has ruined the series for them. This game is a horrendous piece of shit. It is an insult to the series. It is spitting in Scott's face. And we have people like Phil Morg, like I mentioned earlier. He's all up and right leaving the community because of this. And we have a couple other people who will be leaving the community because of this. And there really is no middle ground right now. I'd say I'm very middle on this game. I'm very mid. I do not really like it that much because of what they did with the story and the ending. But I respect people who do like it, and I respect people who hate it. You know, it's their opinion. But the people who are attacking Steel Wool over this, or the people who are just blindly defending this, it's not really helping anybody. You know, this is just turning into another poor Twitter discussion with people just yelling at each other for nothing over a game. And the last thing I'm going to leave this on is, I am uncertain of Five Nights at Freddy's future. I think this game has has ushered in the new era. Long gone is, the Leon Riskin soundtracks, the ambience, the subtle horror with the deep, tidbits of mystery. I think that is gone for now. I think that era has ended. It kind of ended with Help Wanted, and I think Help Wanted should have been where it ended regarding it. I don't think this game should have been a Five Nights at Freddy's game, because this game is only really a Five Nights at Freddy's game in name. Really does not have much to do with the series. You could quite literally just put Van Halen gay neon bear, 80s inspired thing, and just put it on there, and you could pass it off as another thing. It would just be a neon style game, and that'd be great. I think that'd be awesome. But it really is certainly something what's going on here. Now, as I've already said, I want to make sure that everyone who watches this, please go give Steel Wool some thanks. They worked their ass off for this. Us as the community begged them for this. And even if it's not what you wanted, at least thank them for their efforts. Encourage them to fix this game and to do a bit more with it, and to, hopefully cover some of the crap that happened with the DLC or future titles, but please go thank them for their efforts. Don't go tearing them a new asshole because of this. And I just hope that this kind of settles soon, that the dust settles, and that we all come back together as a community, because seriously, I never would have foreseen that this game would have divided people. I may have foreseen that the hype may have been too much, but not that it would divide people too much. You know what I mean?